Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Welcome back. It is week 2 on the ET Phone Home build. I gotta call it something better than that because, yeah, the ship never really had a name. Now, Christopher calls it the Phone Home 1, which, you know, like, I guess like Air Force 1 or, you know, Spaceball 1 or whatever you want to call it. That's obviously a made-up name for sake of reference. I think I'll call it Debbie. I mean, there's no real name for this ship, so it was E.T.'s ship. It was actually the exploratory mission from E.T.'s planet. It wasn't his ship. He wasn't the captain. He was a lowly gardener. So maybe we'll call it Chauncey's ship, Chauncey Gardner. Anyway, I ramble. I was wanting to get on with construction, but I am missing some key parts still. Now, Christopher has sent me a new box. I haven't gotten it yet, but in that new box are the parts that I need. I can't really do anything with the landing gear or the lamps because I'm missing key parts of both of those assemblies. I could work on the antenna and the topper, and I may do that this week, just getting ready for the rest of it. But I started playing around with this very base bottom part. This is the part that goes way under the bottom here. And it has scads of lighting in it. And it has pink pulsing lights here and blue lights around the sides. Now, for the pink pulsing lights, I'm going to be using Elliott Brown's wonderful, and I called this the monster circuit last time. I meant to say alien menace circuit. Menace, monster, they're awfully close. So, but this is his circuit, and it's got a dial-up speed indicator for these pulses. And I'm going to be replacing these with pink bulbs that I've got on column coming in from Osmium that really probably will be in today's mail. But it will look something like this. They will stick down through the bottom, and when it's landed, it will be projecting a pink glow on the base. And that's another thing. I will be able to use some leftover landscaping from the Valley Forge on my base because I'm going to get a nice circular base and do some landscaping on that, which means I'll be able to use some of those scale model trees and whatnot. So those are going around the base, and that'll glow. That'll give me a nice pink glow in the center. Now they also have blue lights. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. I just yanked them because these were only plugged in, so I just yanked the bulbs right out. So we'll put that off to the side, and it's got 4 blue lights around the perimeter here. And I was going to go with just some standard SM LEDs there, and then I remembered I had these still left over from another project, and they are SM LEDs, but they have they're called breathing LEDs, and if I can keep the power to them, you can see they've got a pulse to them too. So what Elliott did with this big circuit board is accomplished with this little tiny thing right here on the SM LED, but I know Elliott won't take that personally, so I'm thinking 4 of these blinking around the side, and since they will all eventually go off of sync with each other, that'll be nice because Elliott's all blink in. It's like that line from Airplane 2 that when Shatner's playing Buck Murdoch on the moon, it's like, these lights aren't blinking in sequence. We'll get them to blink out of sequence. These ones won't be blinking in sequence. These ones will. So I think that'll give some nice visual interest. And remember what I said, this kit is all about the lighting because the colors on it are not that great. And so I'm also, pulling out my bulbs that I've got on hand, and I'm thinking what I want to use for the spotlights. I've got those coming because there's a particular color that Osmium makes called, it's called intermediate white. It's not quite warm and it's not quite cool. That's what I want to use for those. So those bulbs are coming from Osmium. These are just plain old 3mm cool whites, and they're going to go right here. Between each lamp, there is a cool white and 2 reds. Now the reds I'm going to try to do with fiber optic, because I have this really fat fiber optic that I have been wanting to use, and I haven't found a good use for it. Well, now I can, because I think it's about the right size, and there's plenty of room up in here. So if I want to run fiber optics and then run it to a red bulb, I think that's going to suit me very well in that instance. So what I need to do is to drill out all of these holes for that fat fiber optic, and then drill out these holes for the 3mm. You could actually put a 5mm in there if you wanted to, but there's no reason for it. This is pretty much a socket. It's captured. It's confined. A 5mm would fill it out, but it's actually kind of overkill for that. So if I put a 3mm in here and then fill it in with a resin, it will fill in that whole cavity. And also it gets, I've already got these on hand, so I can use up stuff that I've already got and don't have to go out and buy a bunch of new stuff. So I'm thinking that while I'm waiting for parts to come in, I can finish doing some more drilling and drilling and filling for bulbs and windows. I need to go back and check the film again to see how many, if any, of these I want to drill out and run fibers to them before I put too much time and energy into the black priming, the gloss painting, and then I still don't know whether I'm going to use the Molotov or the all-clad, but I may try it out on something separate just to see which gives me a better finish. But that's where I'm at this week. So join me on this adventure, and when the parts come in, we can get to more active construction. Oh, I know one thing I can do. Is I can go ahead and work in this antenna that sits, well, you have to do this. It sits right on top of the ship right there, and it's got lights in it as well. So I could drill those out, put the fibers in them, stick that down through there. It also has lights here that I'll probably use either 3mm for or SM LEDs, just because I don't need to have a bunch of wiring running through, and then I can make a tiny hole here and run the wire down. So still lots of fun stuff to do this week. It's raining. It's going to rain all week, so I'm going to have to do any drilling out that I need to do. Going to do that on the back porch. I'm glad I did take time over the weekend to hollow these out. I don't know whether I showed you these, but these are hollowed out now, and they're ready for a bulb and framework. Okay, I decided to start kind of from the top down this morning, and I am working on lighting up the very top antenna array. And no, this is not the color I may end up using. This is a warm white. It's a very yellow, warmish white. And these are not as long as these would end up being, but what I'd like to do is go ahead and get this epoxied in, and I'll probably use some JB Weld, since it's an epoxy that's also a light block. I can just fill up the bottom of that cone, and this is just where the light's plugged into it, but I can kind of push this down, and then that'll lock all of those fibers in place, and then I can snip them when we get later into the painting. But well, this is certainly unexpected. The mail has come today, and rather than getting the lights I was expecting, I actually got the parts. Oh, these are beautiful. These are beautiful. I got the parts from Christopher, so those are going to go on just like that. Look at that. That's beauty. And you take that with a little bit of screen, and you pop it like that, and you put your light behind it, and you have work lights. Oh, that's tremendous. That's beautiful. That's exactly what I was hoping to get. And I got the replacement parts for the landing gear. Oh yeah, and he gave me a bunch of new ramp pieces. Those are beautiful. Those are quite nice. Okay, so well, good. I got those parts in, and I can start working on the construction. So nothing can stop me now. Morning, folks. It's Tuesday. It's time to get back to work on the ET ship. And now that I've gotten all the pieces in, and actually after I finished yesterday, the lighting came in from Osmium, so I am good to go. So it was a bit overwhelming, I have to tell you, all those parts and all those pieces for all of the sub-assemblies. So I decided to narrow everything down to what it is I exactly want to be working on, and that is getting the landing gear in place first. Now, there are no set stops. Like you are asked to make these holes and slide the landing gear supports up through them, but there are no stops on there. You're basically supposed to cut out the holes, fit the landing gear together, and make it look like you want to look, and then glue it in place. And that's, you know, that's not exactly how I like to work. So to me, the most important thing, there are two most important things, which I know is an oxymoron. The single most important thing is to make sure this is level. This is flat and level with the earth, because you are building the rest of the ship on it, and you don't want the thing to be leaning when you're done. So that's important. And the other important thing to me is the angle of the outside angle of these gear. Now I went ahead and glued one of them in place, because you have to start somewhere. And I've decided that I like this little bit of inward angle. See if I can get that on. See how it's not straight up and down. It would be easy enough to make them straight up and down. But I like the little bit of an inward angle. I think it's a little bit more comical. I think it fits better with the overall dome shape, the overall egg shape. If the well, it'd help if I was doing that in camera. The overall shape kind of comes back down, and having the landing gear kind of cant in a little bit fits with that angle. And plus, I still have these big goofy feet to put on it, so that'll take care of any of the weight distribution that I'm worried about. So knowing that I like that, and it's just a question of making the other three match that, and then putting a level across it to make sure that this is sitting level. I know that these feet are level because they are the same piece 3 times. It's the same piece. So that height doesn't change. Well, again, here are the 3 feet, and they are the same casting, just done 3 times. So I know that those are the same height. When it comes time to sit that on there, the goal is to drill out a hole in here such that this pin fits down into it, and then you epoxy sculpt around it to kind of camouflage that joint. I'm okay with that. The important thing is to make sure that when you are sitting here, when it's on its feet, it is high enough up that you still have room for this light rocket nozzle feature to make sure that it's not sitting on the ground. You want it to be a little bit high off the ground so that you can see the lighting effect. And if you put the legs out too far, you run the risk of this actually hitting the ground. So in order to get you the height that you want, I have, unscientifically come up with this as the angle that I want to emulate. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that in place, and then level the other 2 up to it to make it level. Okay, I think I've reached a point of equilibrium here where this dimension here is level, this dimension here is level, this dimension here is level. So what I'm going to do is set the tops of these in place. Now these will all have to be ground over and sliced down because this clear part sits on top of this flat edge. So once these are glued down, they will be sanded flat. And I'll probably have to do something to this ring to allow for the nubs to stick up a little bit. But I'm happy with all of these for the moment. So let's get this one point locked in. Yep, everything is still flat. Everything is still good. Okay, we're going to let these set. And this is nice raw resin, so it's going to take the CA like a champ here. I'm not even going to put any kicker on that. I'm just going to let that soak in. The mixing the media with the acrylic pieces is also perhaps a bit of a challenge, but the idea was that when I opened up these holes that they weren't really loose in there, so that they're good friction fits to start with. Okay, that's those 3 joints. Now that should pull everybody in at a similar angle, and now I can glue the white bits in, glue those down, and then I will pack the inside of that with a little bit of epoxy to seal it. I am kind of concerned, I won't lie to you, I am kind of concerned about the overall weight sitting on top of this, so I am wondering, I am counting on these resin pieces and acrylic pieces being sturdy enough to take the weight. And I'm still, oh yeah, beauty, beauty, beauty. So I have some brass tubing left over from Valley Forge, and I haven't decided yet whether I want to make maybe a reinforcement right up through the center here, just wedge it between these 2 points to allow a little bit more stability. So we're just gonna have to see how the build progresses and see whether or not that's gonna be something that is needed. Now we'll let that dry, and then we'll come and shave the tops of those off. Okay, I've just been outside and back and forth, jumping in and out of the rain with the tiny little disc sander on the back porch, and I've got these guys ground off so that I can fit this piece over it just fine. And I am also thinning down these side fenders, for lack of a better term, so that they can go on either side of the landing gear. So let's go ahead and get those guys glued in. Okay, but now I just need to take a pair of matching fenders and put them on either side like that. Okay, for the last bit on the construction of the landing gear, you see I've got the shoulder fender thingies on. I've just taken these outside and drilled an oversized hole in them at the angle that I need it to be. And what I'll do is I just want to set these in the feet and make sure that everything is still level. And then I want to, okay, that's still coming out as level, a little bit off, a little bit high in the front. That's good. Oh, that's good side to side. Oh, that's beautiful there. Okay, so what I want to do is square these guys off so that they are facing completely out at the, I believe those are, I don't know, it's what, 0, I don't know my degrees. That's 90, that's 180, so this is like what, 120, 240, something like that, 360. So I want to make sure they're all leveled up. And then I want to just put some epoxy in there, some slow-moving epoxy, some 5-minute epoxy, so that they have time to set up. And then that will give me my final level for all. I mean, I know that this is level. I just have to make sure these aren't sitting on anything that's gonna, because I know the feet have been sanded level. Those are nice and flat. I just need to make sure that they're not sitting up on anything. Squirt a little epoxy in here, push that down into it, and then that gets all of this level. And once I know that, then I know my final height, that I can do my ramp, and I can do this guy and everything. So that's a goodly amount of construction for one morning. Okay, the feet are under it and drying or curing, and it is just the slightest bit off of square, off of level. But I can make that up with a shim when I go to put it on the base, because I can put a little tiny shim under the foot and bring it up when it comes to gluing it down to the base with all the foliage and on that. I can disguise that easily. To get it this close, with it being a handmade garage kit, is an achievement unto itself. So I am happy to get it this close. So once the feet have cured, the next step will be to go ahead and epoxy this down, and that will help support the legs and all of that. And it's no better time to do that when I can see exactly how to center that. We have been not defeated. What is the opposite of defeated? We have been feated. It was no mean feat, but yes. Oh, shouldn't grab it by the feet, idiot. It's not that stable. But all the feet are in. I will reinforce them now, and the last thing I wanted to do is sand this out. I've drilled the hole for the entry. I just need to sand that out nice and round, and then I can pack some epoxy sculpt in and around some of these feet to give them a little bit more stability, and runs the wiring up from the little lights that will be on the feet. Alright, now because it is so ugly out and I cannot rely upon being able to sit outside and do any great amount of work, I have to do my sanding and my drilling inside, namely right here. And unfortunately that kicks up a lot of resin dust, and I don't like doing that indoors. I like doing that outdoors where I can, sweep it away and take care of it. But if I have to do it indoors, then that means I've got to constantly run vacuum cleaner so that I can be sucking up the dust. And yes, I'm wearing the respirator when I'm working in a confined area. I just don't have it on now because I'm not actively sanding, plus I'm trying to be heard. So what I'm thinking of doing is there is a little bit more that I need to sand today, and that is I need to sand out these holes here so that I can put the blue lights in. Basically all I really need to do is drill a hole through this rather thick resin, which kicks up a lot of dust, and then etch out just enough room to put that big blue circuit in there, and then pop the blue crystal back on top of it. I'm starting to work on the ramp just because I want to change gears a little bit, and I've taken the two pieces of acrylic cut that are beautifully nice, fine, detailed stuff, and I have butted them together. Now I did not want this ramp to be straight. I want it to have a little bit of a bend in it, so you can see it's got a slight angle to it. It is not a straight ramp. It should have a little bit of a bow. Now these are going to have vertical supports coming this way up to the frame, so that when it sits in the framework like that, it's going to be something like, of course it's tough to see this since it's clear. It'd be a lot easier to see once it's painted, but get the idea that I need to, now that I know what this height is, I can measure for my verticals, for my vertical supports here. Okay, we've got everything stacked. Everything's stacked on the feet. So it's definitely holding the weight. Now I don't have, this is not the ultimate weight obviously, because I don't have any of the lamps on yet, nor do I have the lighting installed, but I didn't hear any ominous creaking or groaning, so I'm presuming these feet will hold the load. I've also am playing with the ramp and the ramp frame, and I'm going to try to put some SM LEDs here at the base, because there seems to be lights right here at the joint, as well as lights on the feet. So like I said, this is going to be a disco before it's done. Okay, I took a little bit of finagling, a little bit of measure twice, cut once, measure once, cut twice type of things. But I've got the ramp in now. It's only taped down because Lord knows there's many miles to go before I sleep. Lots of work to be done before this ramp ever gets nailed in completely. But what we've got now is a ramp that sits on the ground as it should, which has the nice little bend in it. And if I want to put, let's not get him, let's get another one of the dudes in here. We want to put little dude on the ramp. We can put the little dude on the ramp. It's a little, I have to glue him down. It's a little steep, but that's what has to happen. But now we can pull this thing out and wire it up and get it ready to be plugged in at some future date. But I can paint it up and get it out of the way. What I want to do today to finish up is to get this piece here glued down, clamped, all that kind of stuff. Get it permanently attached and ready to go for the next step. But got these holes all drilled out. Okay, we got the first lights in place. Now this ramp, like I've said, is not glued in, but we've got our tiny little work lights at the midpoint of the ramp, and it's a good start. Okay, I've got the ring epoxy down now, and it's set up. I think it's a goodly amount of work for one day. Got all those landing gear put on, got all that adjusted, got the lights installed on the ramp. That's ready to go in. Yeah, I think this is a nice pace. This is a nice. It's not a frantic pace. It's not a leisurely pace, but it's a good steady pace, and that's what we need in these trying times. Is a good steady pace. Thought we'd end today with one more neat little lighting test. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's all of the perimeter lights, the main ones, cool whites, and then the ones in between will be the red fiber optics. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's Wednesday, and I found it yesterday. I found it very difficult to concentrate on specific things. There is just so much in this kit that is overwhelming, that it can be overwhelming. So I try to minimize that by working on one specific thing at a time. But then I get distracted, and it gives me an idea for the next stage and the next stage, and I'm not spending the time thinking through the things I need to be doing. So I'm trying to eliminate distraction and work on just what's in front of me today. And that being this module here. This is going to take 4 blue pulsing lights and 2 pink lights in the bottom. Now these pink lights that I've gotten from Osmium, they're kind of purplish. They're not quite bright pink. They're kind of purplish. Hope you can see that. But they're definitely not red, which is what I was hoping to avoid. And I'm going to put 2 of those down here. Now, originally I thought of making those pulse, but these blue ones are going to be pulsing, and that's enough. So I'm going to use Elliot's pulsing circuit further up in the upstream, up in the head. So that will not be going to waste. I will be using it. I'm just going to move it to another location. And I'm looking at Ralph's board. I'm using the Ralph's board that I adapted his Invaders board, a UFO board that I have adapted. It has 2 outputs besides the rotating circuit. It's got one output for pre-resisted or non-resisted LEDs, and that is these 2 wires, or those are these 2 wires right here. And that means I could put LEDs on here that don't need a resistor because they have been resisted on the board itself. And then there's a hookup on it that Ralph specifies be used for LED strip, which is straight 9-volt, straight through 9-volt, because LED strips have their own resistors in it. So anything that's already pre-resisted, I could use on that circuit. And then I can fit this circular board. It has to fit here, which will go into the first layer of the gold teeth that it has to shine out through. But this board can kind of sit down underneath that area. The irony is I'm going to have a whole lot more room up above here. Well, let's get my, we can see my hand. I'm going to have all the room in the world up above here where the big dome is. My more limited room is down here. But I also need to run an external power jack, because I'm not going to be running this thing on batteries. That's just not feasible. I want to be able to seal it up, and sealing it up and using batteries are two completely separate things. So I have this jack that I want to put in the back of the hull, so that when this is sitting down on a base, it can kind of run up the back leg. And so I'm going to attach this jack right about in this area here so that I can plug it in, and it'll kind of be hidden on the base. I just generally prefer to do my models that way and run a straight power source to them. Okay, so I've got the 4 bulbs in the blue bulbs in the bottom of the ship, and they all start out blinking or fading in at the same rate, but the longer you leave them on, the more out of sync they go, which is kind of the goal. You can see them starting to go out of sync with each other. So that gets planted on the bottom of the ship, and then a pink light goes in the center. I just need to make a disc in here. Turn this light back on. I need to make a disc in here and mount 2 of the pink bulbs in there. I don't think 1 is quite enough. I'll try it with 1 and see if that's enough. But then I'll just make a clear cover for the top of that. Alrighty, this jack has had a goodly long amount of time to get sealed in there. Very low profile from the outside. Okay, while I'm waiting for other things to dry or otherwise heal up or cure, I am going to put a coat of gold on here. Now, I painted this with the gold automotive duplicolor, and that's a good base coat, but it doesn't quite get in and around all the nooks and crannies like a fine English muffin. So I'm going to finish it off with the Tamiya gold leaf. Now, the great thing about this kit and its organic nature is I've got some puckering and some fish-eyeing and some texturing going on there, and I don't mind it a bit. I actually think it works. It plays into the organic nature of some of this stuff, so I don't mind that a tiniest bit. So let me get the brush out and clean and give this a good talking to. Okay, so they're not all wired in. I mean, they're in place, but they're not wired up for a connection. But I wanted you to see how these turned out. It's a great place to stop for today. I'm just holding down the wires to the battery. Maybe this is the better view to show you here. Look at that little guy right there. Just a nice little foot pad light. Between those and the ramp lights and the bottom lights and the spinny lights and the other lights, it's going to be a well lit little thing when we're done. Morning, kids. It's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend. This is going to be one of those productive days. I just have a feeling. I'm in good position to get a lot done, and that's usually a good sign. I have got all of the, it's real delicate now, so why I'm not lighting it up, but I've got all of the guts, the lights inside of this bottom unit, and I'm just getting ready to mix up some epoxy and glue that thing down. And if you could see all of the tiny wiring coming out, I had to do surgery on one of them this morning, and it was not pretty to fix a spliced, a broken wire. So that's why I try to immobilize those as best as possible, so to not give them undue jostling. And the other thing I did this morning is I made good on my threat to get rid of that reed switch, and I replaced it with this, so that you can see I can change the speed with this push of this switch a whole lot easier than I could with the reed switch and the magnet. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to squirrel it away in one of these landing gear bays, so that I could just, bump up and touch it if I need to. So I'm figuring out my wiring and how I need to route it. I got the jack in yesterday for power. I think what I need to do, because this is such a delicate state right now, is I want to go ahead and glue this bottom module in, or epoxy it down, and then once that, I can walk away and let that cure, and once it's cured in place, then I can turn this thing upside down and explain more of what I've been doing. So let's do that and take care, let it cure, and then we'll come back and I can show you more of what's been done. Okay, we've got some incremental success here, and I always like reporting incremental success. And I've got remote in hand. Hit remote button. You see the effect of the pink light down here. You see the rest of this circuit, which is the first layer of chase lights. And if I put my little pinky in the landing gear, I can change the rate of the chasing. And because we are working with power and electricity and wiring and lights and all that, I'm moving extra slow. My next step is to get a piece of white sheet plastic and close all of this down, with the exception of this circuit, which will sit on top of it. What have I done? I've done something horrible. Oh my goodness, I've done something horrible. Oh, I must have bumped a wire. Okay, but once this is up by itself, then I can poke a hole in this and sit this circuit on top of it. So I'm trying not to move things around too much while I am see, I'm making that change. Once everything is set and secure here, I'm going to more or less set it in stone, or at least in epoxy, and then set it and forget it. There's one last detail I need to take care of inside here, and that is to put a backer piece behind the what would be the open door, and then a light just to go behind that. But I'm to the point where I'm almost ready to start not necessarily nailing down wiring, but taking care of and settling it into place, and trying to minimize the amount of wiring that has to go back and forth. I'd rather keep everything down here than just send power wires up the rest of the way. So yeah, looking good. Okay, well, I've run out of steam for today, so you can see the light. Let me turn this overhead light off. It'll make it a little bit more dramatic. But look what happens when I push the magic button. Yep, you've got the pink light on the ground, you've got the blue lights in the cone, you've got the boarding ramp light, you've got light on each of the foot pads, and then you have the circuits going on inside there. Like I said, I've run out of steam today, but my goal for this week is to be complete up to this point. So that just leaves me tomorrow to paint the insides of those rings yellow and get those rings nailed down and really secure. And that will give me plenty of opportunity next week to do the lamps, the work light lamps, and the rest of it. I still think I've got maybe 2 weeks left on this, so this is week 2. If it's a 4-week build, that's pretty good. But you can see what's going on here. I just need to... The problem I've got is these lights aren't nailed down, and they're not exactly in the center, and they're not exactly at the height they're going to be. That kind of stuff needs to be dialed in still, but getting a lot of that stuff done. I love that ramp. That new ramp that Christopher came up with. Very nice. But yeah, it's coming along. Good morning, welcome back. It is Friday, the last work day of the week, and I've got some very manageable expectations today. I think I'm going to be able to get done what I'd like to get done, and that is I want to get this first circuit mounted and glued down and affixed, and I want to get the wiring chased up through the ship, and I want to get this much done. Of course, then I put the second circuit on top of that, and then I epoxy this down. So I want to get to the point where we are, we've got both of our circuits here, and the remaining power wires going up through to light the big, or power the big section that's going on up here, and that will be the focus of next week's work. We'll be getting those lamps all built and all of that, which is sort of like part 2 of all of this. I do have to run out this morning and pick up some yellow Tamiya clear because I am out. I opened up my jar yesterday and it gave off a little cough and wheeze and was completely dried out. So I need to paint the inside of these. I have yesterday, I think I may have done this after I shut the camera off, but I took a clear piece of PETG, cut some strips, sanded them up, roughed them up a bit, and I glued them, super glued them to the inside of these teeth here so that I'd get a nice diffuse appearance there, and it also gives me a surface to paint yellow to help with the lighting, because these are warm whites, and of course these are almost a cool white, but they need a little help into the yellow range, so I'm going to spray the inside of the clear parts yellow to help that out. But I have to go run and get that. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I have not gone to the store yet because it's been oh so busy around here today. You know, you plan for a lot of things to happen in your life, and sometimes they all happen at the same dang time. Had a tree down last week because of all the rain, and today, since the sun is shining and it hasn't rained actively in a couple of days, was the day that the tree service decided to come and take the tree away. So I had to wait around for them to come, so I could not leave the house. And also, I welcome a new addition to my family, and here it is. Dun dun dun. It is the Frozen Transform. Now, here's the problem. It's not a problem really, it's just, you know, something you gotta live with. The guts are not here yet. It was shipped in 2 cases, in 2 packages. Believe it or not, this very thing was in Taiwan 2 days ago. Maybe 3 days ago. It got into Los Angeles like last night or yesterday morning, and it's here already. I cannot believe how fast FedEx can move when they have to. But this is raring to go, but I don't have the power cord, I don't have the any of the accessories, I don't have anything to make it go yet, so it's going to be a learning experience for all of us. But I already have the first couple of kits planned that I would like to print and make with this marvelous thing. So that landed on the doorstep this morning. See, I even have to zoom out to get the whole thing in picture. There you go. But now that this is here and now that the tree is gone and I am unencumbered and not waiting for anything, I can finally go to the store and get the yellow paint that I need. I have worked on this part with the hot glue to get the circuit down where I want it. And again, we can see all the lovely blinkies. And if I reach into this wheel well, I can change the speed. And that's giving me just the look I want right here. It's tough to see it all at one time. That's the problem, is you can't see the whole thing at one shot. So making sure this ring is centered is going to be the important thing. But that is beautiful. All I need to do is get some yellow paint in there and then get the top part on and get that second circuit in. And here you go, in case lest you thought I was joshing you. There's the ship date, 6/17, from Hu Kong's Hang in I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing that, in Taiwan. And 6/17, here it is, 6/19, it's here. Now there's the problem, there's the action required. I've got a box that's got all the goodies in it, and it's stuck in Anchorage, Alaska. Okay, so I'm back from the store. I got some yellow, the last one they had. The yellow, clear yellow Tamiya, and I've sprayed the rings. I'm going to let this dry and give it another coat a little bit later on. Also went to the home improvement store whilst I was out and picked up a base. Wanted to make sure I was going to get one that was big enough. I think this is a nice size by the time we put everything in it. And I'm going to take all those mad landscaping skills I learned on the Valley Forge and apply them to this kit as well. So, see here, I do like the way that shows up better than it does on the rag. Yeah, it's coming along nicely. Like I said, these have got a coat of yellow on them. I'm going to let that dry and then come back and put another coat on it after it has had a chance. Oh, I do like that. I do like that. Just need to make sure that it's sitting all the way down. And I may have to hold this down so that all the teeth are in fact touching the one beneath it. I don't want any gap between those. Be the Mike Tyson of models with the gaps in the teeth. Okay, I'm at one of those points, one of those stages. It always happens in every build. It will happen to you if it hasn't happened already. I'm stalling because I have an important thing to do, and I am, for the life of me, in my brain, in my feeblest of tiny gray cells, I am struggling with thinking and second thoughts and third thoughts, and have I done everything, and am I ready to take this next step, because it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be irreversible. Well, outside of a small tactical device, everything here is reversible. But I'm getting ready to glue this ring down, and I am double checking and triple checking and quadruple checking, and am I ready? Oh my Lord, have I thought of everything? Because I need to make sure that I am the happiest of happy pappies before I glue this thing down. There are no, and if I had to fault this kit has a couple weaknesses. I will not lie to you there. There are some weaknesses in this kit, and the biggest weakness, given all of the cylinders and all of the circles and all of the round things that we're dealing with here, is that there are no keyed parts. This would be so much easier if I knew that this keyed into the part below it, and I knew that it was in the right exact position because the keys lined up. We don't have that luxury here, so I am being doubly cautious that everything is lined up, that it is squared up, that it is even, that it is in the center. I'm trying my best to make sure that all of this is as centered and as even as I can make it. And I'm only one person. I can only do but so good. So I am going to cheat this towards having the front look good, the front where the ramp is. If there's going to be any slack that needs to be taken up, it will be done at the back. But I'm liking how this is sitting right now. I think the next step to do is to glue this down, and there's no real way to do it without without splashing a bunch of CA everywhere. So I think what I want to do is, and I am again double checking, making sure everything is happy, because there are some instances where, and I might just want to take this and do a quick sanding pass on it to make sure this is nice and level. Because I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to set this down and then run a bead of 1 minute epoxy along the inside. I think that's going to be the best way to secure it, because any glue that, or epoxy that gets gloppy is going to be on the inside, and it won't glop out between these teeth on the outside, because between these teeth, just like in your own head, is the toughest part to clean. Without having any floss to floss in between them. Okay, well, you don't need to hear that. Let me clean this up, and the next thing you know, this will be glued down. Okay, so I'm breathing a sigh of relief. I was about 2 seconds into gluing this with the 1 minute epoxy and keeping a careful bead, and I realized, you know, this would be a lot easier if I just stuck it on the turntable and held the glue steady and moved the ship around rather than trying to move the glue around. So, you know, better late than never. It's down, it's flat, I've squoze it to within an inch of its life. I have made my last double checks of the, check the movie one more time, and yes, I was a little bit off on my landing gear lights. I put them out on each toe. They should be up here in the joint, and but I like them out on the toe a little bit better. But I was right about these on the landing ramp. So happy about tremendous amounts of this, and this is a double check one last time. This is the bottom ring. The bottom ring is clockwise. The top ring is counterclockwise. So I wanted to doubly make sure before I went to the next step that I had that much right. And the next step is, if I can find it, oh, it's underneath the turntable here. The next step is to close this off. I need to drill a hole through here, which I have mirrored with the duct tape, the aluminum tape, to reflect the light back down and amplify that, hopefully. I need to make a hole in this plate so that I can fit it down over these wires, and then I can go with this next ring. And once that's in place, I can put the second circuit on, and we'll be done for the day, because this is as much as I wanted to get done. And then once I block the two, the important thing is to get the distinction between the two of them, is to get one blocked off from another so they don't interfere with each other, and you can see the two different paths. I'm making sure that these bulbs are suspended in air. They're about midway up the crevice, or the cavity, which is good. Okay, so let's go to the next step. Okay, so I am ready to do the last big thing of the day, which is to epoxy this ring down. I need to keep even weight on it all the way around, though, to make sure that it lands flat like it should. Lays nice and square. To do that, though, I want to go ahead and put the next ring down. I don't want to glue this because I've got a ton of work that I need to do on this next week, including all the lamps and everything. So I want to sit it down here. Unfortunately, what I needed to do is cut out a hole here in the center. I wasn't going to touch this piece this week, but I had to, because this board sits up a tiny fraction above the plane of the plane of the top plate, so I needed to cut a hole in this to allow for this bit of the circuit board to stick up. So once I get the epoxy down, I could set this weight on it and it'll be nice and even, one hopes. And this is where we're going to close it for this week. Yes, don't pay any attention to this big piece. It's on there just for the weighting, but see what happens when you hit the magic button. Oh yeah, buddy. I still want, if I want to play with that speed, I still need to go into here. There you go. Let me see if we can pick it up off the stand. Show you the... That's how it should be doing. Very nice. Very nice. And that, friends and neighbors, brings us to the end of week 2 on the ET Phone Home build. Got as much done as I wanted to get done. I'm pacing myself on this. I know I've got big things coming in the future, but no sense rushing through this to get to that. So got the all the lighting in. Most importantly, got the cutoff switch and the remote, and we got power figured out and all that. So a lot of the brain work is done now. It's just going to be simply following it up the rest of the build as we go. Looking forward to this next week because we have to build those little swing arm lamp type of dealies. That's going to be a lot of fun getting those installed. So until next week, when we'll be right back at it, you be good. As E.T. would say, be good. And we'll see you here next time.
Be good. Be good. I taught him that too.